Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to Strategic Command World War II, World at War. It is the summer of 1943, and so far the war is off to, well, I mean, we're in the middle stages of the war. It isn't going all that well for the Germans. The Japanese are doing okay, but there's still a large degree of weakness, I think, in the event of an American counterattack. The Germans are actually doing reasonably well in Russia. They've taken Moscow, they've taken Grozny in the Caucasus, they've taken some of the Russian oil wells in the Caucasus, and they've also taken Egypt from the British, in addition to, obviously, the historical conquests of Poland, France, Russia, blah, blah, blah. But with that being said, the Soviets aren't getting any weaker. The Germans are too weak in Western Europe to resist the eventual American invasion there. North Africa is in a precarious position and is in the process of being evacuated. And that's all the situation as we enter June of 1943. So, we're going to have to see how things play out here. We have more or less completed our turn for June of 1943. I'm just going through a few last-minute double checks to make sure there aren't any units that I forgot to upgrade where I could, and then we will be progressing to the AI's turn and then jumping into our own turn at the end of June. Actually, is it going to be July? It's either the end of June or early July of 1943. By my count, we probably have them until the spring of 44, so we've got maybe about a year left to defeat the Russians in order to have a chance against the Americans when their large counteroffensive arrives in Western Europe. Japan, meanwhile, will probably deal a death blow to China in the not-too-distant future. You saw there my mouse was hovering over the capital of Langkao. We've already taken Chongqing, and we're threatening the second Chinese capital of Langkao. We actually destroyed the Chinese unit that's in the city this turn, but we don't have enough movement points to advance and finish the city off. So we'll probably have to attack it again next turn, but then once it falls, China will have lost its second capital. It'll have one more capital deep in the hinterland of China that we need to move to, but there shouldn't really be much that would prevent us from getting there. The real obstacle at this point, from a Japanese perspective, is the British and their Indian Commonwealth allies' invasion of southern China, which so far has been limited in scope. I've got a couple of units blocking the advance, and the fact is the supply situation in southern China and the terrain there greatly favors the defensive, so we hopefully can hang on there. But it's a matter of, rationing and determining where we deploy our forces, because as we get further west in China, it's going to become increasingly difficult to get troops out in the event of a need to redeploy them elsewhere. So as we gradually beat back the Chinese, we also have to make some strategic decisions about peeling some forces away from that successful advance in the interest of ensuring that we're not overextending ourselves deep into China while the British attack into the south of China. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. But with that being said, here you can see we're into the AI turn. It is June 18th, I believe I'm seeing here. Yeah, June 18th. The Americans are now attacking into Libya. They have moved through Tunis. They've taken Tunis. They're attacking the garrison units in western Libya, which are really just there as a screening force, so we've got time to pull the Africa Corps and what's left of the Italian army in North Africa out and redeploy it on the continent, ideally against the Russians. If I can bring 7 or 8 new units to bear, that should hopefully assist in our what will probably amount to a late fall offensive against the Soviets. Meanwhile, there you can see in front of Stalingrad and at a couple other places on the Eastern Front, the Soviets are getting relatively aggressive, and they are counterattacking. They're trying to retake ground and threaten our flanks here in the Caucasus region, and they're doing a job of it. There's some limited counterattacks occurring here near Moscow as well, although that city is probably outside the Russian grasp for the moment. The Finnish capital at Helsinki is also being attacked there, so we'll have to deal with that threat. I think Finland will soon be knocked out of the war, just a reality of the situation. But the Russians are also counterattacking in the Baltic states, up here near Tallinn and along this front where we have a very weak flank guard, and they could theoretically drive into the rear of our entire army in Russia, which is the vast majority of the entire German army. So, we have to balance holding in the northern section while we try and drive toward the Russian capital in the eastern section. Yeah, it's a balance of logistics, and frankly, if I had done a better job in the initial invasion and had taken the Baltic states, we'd have a shorter front, and our flank would be less exposed, and we'd need fewer units there. But woulda, coulda, shoulda. That's just not the reality of the situation right now. Meanwhile, Western Libya will probably fall next turn. You can see the American mechanized troops move forward. They destroyed the first garrison unit. They started blooding the second garrison unit. Soviet counterattacks with armor here in the north are also threatening our position. Soviet mechanized troops are falling back a little bit here in central Russia. And we're really trying to focus on I'm trying to figure out what the right course of action is. This next turn might make sense to kind of pause for a moment and re-equip and regroup with our forces, but we'll have to see about that. I really would like to take Gorky and advance on Perm, which is the second Soviet capital. They get 2 capitals after Moscow, and if I could take both in near simultaneous turns, then the Russians might not have a chance to reinforce the second capital. But frankly, right now, the primary capital at Kubyshev, I'm sorry, I'm really bad at pronouncing. I'll have to take a look at it on the map again. But that capital is also kind of seemingly out of reach right now. My troops are really worn down. We really need the winter to reinforce and regroup. The problem is by 1944, if we haven't already, seriously threatened or nearly taken one of those capitals, we're going to be in a bit of trouble. I know a lot of you, or a couple of you, have made comments about my need to pull troops back to Western Europe to deal with the eventual American invasion there. You are theoretically right. What I'm banking on is the fact that as long as my troops are on rail lines, as soon as it becomes apparent the Americans are about to invade, then I can just spend a bunch of, money and rail my troops back to France to build a defensive position against the Allies there. So that's my hope anyway. You can see here Colombia just joined the Allies. Australia is mobilizing its defenses, probably due to the fact that the Japanese fleet is so close by, and frankly, we just destroyed a British fleet off the coast of Australia. And you can see here some French resistance activities are occurring. It seems like the resistance has kind of been cropping up and getting a little bit more potent as of late. Looks like the AI turn is over. That wasn't too bad of a turn, actually. They attacked in a few places. We lost 1 garrison unit and some casualties, but we didn't suffer too heavily. So at least there's that. Report to the German High Command, the growth and resistance movements in Europe. Oh, shit. So apparently all of the resistance units in Europe are going to activate fully as of January 1944. So we've got a couple of months there, but we may have to pull additional garrison troops back to keep those troops off of our back as well. That's not going to be fun. All right, so let's take a look here. If we move to Argentina, we're going to deal with that first. So as you remember from a couple of turns ago, Argentina declared war on the Allies. So while Colombia is joining the Allies, Argentina is already on the Axis side. So we're going to try and advance the Argentine forces on Porto Alegre and hopefully eventually toward Rio de Janeiro, the capital of Brazil. Maybe we can knock Brazil out of the war, and boy, that would be great if we could. So we've got a garrison unit coming up toward the port. It's not a supply city or anything like that. It's nothing too substantial, but it is something, I guess. It's on the road to Rio de Janeiro, and maybe it'll divert some American forces against Argentina instead of fighting against our forces in Europe. With that being, or at the very least, maybe we can conquer Brazil and get a little bit more income for us. At any event, we launched the initial attack in Porto Alegre, and we have done some damage that I'm sure the Brazilians will replace next turn with some reinforcements. Meanwhile, in North Africa, we're going to immediately pay money to get our troops on transports. So it'll probably be about 100 MPP worth of transports there. We're also going to go ahead and upgrade the garrison here at Cairo. This is the Egyptian Legion garrison at Cairo. But we're going to go ahead and give them infantry weapons level 2 in an effort to delay the fall of Egypt as long as possible, to deny that to the British. We have the Italian and German troops on transports. We're going to send them to Athens and to Thessalonica and to Taranto, respectively. You can see here the German armored unit here in southern France is also going to be reinforced. This was the Africa Corps armor. The German field artillery battery here will also be reinforced. So the Africa Corps is being beefed up a bit, and these guys will come ashore. They'll need reinforcements as well. But all in all, we've got an Italian army, the 10th Italian Army, an Africa Corps field artillery, an Africa Corps infantry corps, the Africa Corps tank unit, and the Africa Corps headquarters unit, which are all going to be railing to Russia over the next few turns. We're going to these guys need to be actually on a rail line so they can move next turn. So Rommel will be heading to Russia next turn, as well as the Africa Corps armor and the artillery. The infantry will have to wait to be reinforced. Okay. Oh, fuck. Nice. Okay. The Italian sub did a little bit of damage there. And the German sub will also continue to try and harass the American battleships here. So we're not going to sink really much of anything, but maybe we'll at least give them a little bit of a bloody nose. Meanwhile, in France, the Groningen fortification here, the British troops in Groningen are now completely without supply and will be destroyed. So we'll go ahead and finish these guys off. How do we want to... I guess we're going to go with the Bulgarians here. So they'll finish off the British at Groningen. We'll reinforce this garrison unit in The Hague. I think that means we're good for... Yep, partisans are good. This German unit here is going to upgrade to level 2 infantry weapons. And then we'll rail them east next turn. And then these cavalry units, which are already kind of upgraded as much as I want to for the moment, are going to go ahead and operate to the Russian front. For 11 MPP, we'll bring this cavalry division to the Russian front. We'll put them into the the Baltic states area as an effort to kind of slow down the Russians there. Meanwhile, we'll move this corps back, and we're gonna speed march these guys into Pozov, or however you pronounce the name of that city here. So we're gonna have our heavy tanks forward here. What's the supply in this city? 4, so it's not great. We really need a headquarter here on the Baltic front. Maybe that's where Rommel will go. But we now have a cavalry division and some heavy armor here to help blunt the Soviet advance there. We'll move those guys forward a little bit. Reinforce some of these guys. Yeah, so that's the situation here. The Russians actually have 2 headquarters here, which is quite a lot. If I could strike at them, I would. Headquarters are really important to destroy. They severely impact the enemy's ability to supply their forces. But that's the situation here. We're really not going to touch anything else here in northern Russia, the Baltic state front. Meanwhile, in the Caucasus, we're going to go ahead and reinforce this armored unit. We can completely reinforce them to level 10, as well as our paratroopers. So we'll go ahead and do that. We're also going to prepare these paratroopers for a paradrop. And then we're going to go ahead and advance the 14th German Army here against Tbilisi. Can we bomb them? Yeah, we won't do much damage. All right, additionally, there is the 23rd USSR Army here that is cut off just to the northeast of Grozny. So we're going to go ahead and hit them. What do we want to hit them with? Let's hit them with bombers here, the Italian bombers. And then we'll move this unit forward here. Alright, so we'll finish them off with that armor. Move these guys back here. Oh, shit. Undo button. Nice, I never saw that button before. Alright. I completely clicked the wrong button. Didn't mean to do that. So we're going to reinforce these guys. I don't want to leave Grozny open to Soviets, though. I don't want to put my headquarters unit here, but I might have to. I guess we'll do this. We'll see how it plays out. It's a little bit of a risk. Alright, so we reinforced this mechanized unit, Panzer Grenadiers. We attacked with our armor, failed to take Tbilisi, but we at least reduced its defenders to level 1. We may pull the Soviet core unit out of here. Moving the headquarters unit to Grozny should bump up the supply a bit next turn, so that these guys shouldn't be out of supply. Meanwhile, we'll have 2 fresh units here to the north. We'll even have paratroopers. They could come in, maybe drop south of Tbilisi or maybe south of Baku. Baku's a supply point, though, so we'll have to see about that. This Stuka here can't reach the armor or the infantry at Tbilisi, so we're actually going to go ahead and bombard the Soviet corps here that was attacking to near Morovinsk, mainly because they're being a bit of a threat here to this German infantry unit here, this corps unit that was just attacked. So we're going to go ahead and move. These guys have experience, so we're going to move these guys here. They'll attack this Soviet corps. Then they'll pull back. These guys will advance and attack. These guys will advance south and attack. And pull back here. Okay. So we attacked and weakened this corps. We didn't destroy them, but we at least weakened them. Let's see. Question is, do we want to try and advance to the east against Kubajev? Kubajev? Is that how you pronounce it? I know I was kind of getting comments that I was saying it with an N, and there's no N in the name, obviously, but anyway. Okay, so this Italian unit forward here. There's Soviet troops. There's an army at Penza, and we just discovered it by moving like that. So can these guys? No. No one can reach the damn target. This one Stuka unit can, but that's about it. Okay, so the Stuka will do some damage there. We'll move our mechanized unit forward against them. I don't know if anybody else can get out there. That is not what I wanted to do. Fuck. Damn it. Alright, we'll try and hit some of this cavalry here to the south. I really didn't want to get this mechanized corps chewed up quite like that. I want to reinforce. We'll wait on that. We've got 2 more Stukas here. Strategic bomber here. So we're going to get some interceptors and escorts battling it out. We'll shoot down some Soviet fighters there. We'll lose a little bit of casualties ourselves. And we'll bomb to no effect. Alright, I really want to try and reduce this fortification to the north of Moscow. It is a little bit of a thorn in our side. It'll expand the front a little bit and remove some threat as we try and advance east. Okay, so we successfully dealt with them. We destroyed the fortifications. And we can advance those guys in that direction. Did we use this up? We did. I used all my bomb. No, I didn't. I didn't use those up. Alright, so we'll Stuka these guys. And that does nothing. Lovely. Okay. Nice. We only lost 1 casualty, and we drove them out of their position. There you go. That army succeeded as well. So that allows us to drive some of these units out a bit. We'll go ahead and reinforce some of these armored units to try and get them back up to full strength, or as close to it as we can get them. We can't get them all to full strength. Move that headquarters unit into the suburb of Moscow. So we've got these 3 armored units, which are all mostly reinforced. This paratrooper unit uses... We don't have enough for more supply or a better infantry weapon setup. So we're advancing on Gorky in the north. I want to try and move my aircraft a little bit closer to where they're going to be operating. These fighters are moving here. This headquarters unit will move to Rezhnev. Okay. We'll attack with this army against these, this armor. Okay. Alright, so move this headquarter into Rezhev. This will give all these guys full supply. Additionally, this headquarter unit to the north of Moscow, it's in a city, should give good supply up north here. This unit here should give good supply to the troops in the center. Rezhensk should hopefully support the troops in this bit of a salient. And we'll have to see how the Soviets respond in the south. Oh, wow. That unit says it'll get 4 casualties. Didn't quite get 4, but still. That's a very good result for us. Heck, we almost destroyed them. Not quite. We couldn't quite finish them off. But this Soviet army, the 27th Army down here, was dealt a pretty rough blow there. Alright, so we'll have to see what the Soviet Corps here does. But overall, I think that's a reasonably successful turn. We actually didn't destroy a lot of Soviet units. We did destroy a few. If we take a look at the reports, the Soviets are actually below 80 units, so they've started to get weaker. They've started to stop replacing their losses here in the summer of 43. So maybe, just maybe, we're getting close to a turning point. But we'll see. I'm not, too optimistic about that yet. I'd really rather reinforce these guys, but we're going to operate them forward here. And we'll see. I mean, we're starting to advance toward the Volga. I'm assuming the Soviets had a bunch of troops here, and they're digging in with engineers and the like. They've also got a fair bit of mechanized troops up north here near Gorky and Yaroslav, but we'll have to see how that all plays out. I've got additional reinforcements that are on the way. This infantry unit here, I think we'll move it to... Well, actually, let's see. Where do we want to go with these guys? Move them here. Move these guys to Bremen. Alright, so all in all, we removed the British threat from France. We pulled the Germans out of Egypt. We haven't yet lost Egypt, but that will come soon. And we attacked eastward in Russia, threatening Tbilisi, and hopefully this Soviet heavy tank unit's the only thing near Baku. We could be wrong, but there's 2 oil wells down here that give us a lot of economic activity if we can take them. So we'll see how things play out next turn. Also, hopefully this armor doesn't drive forward and attack our headquarter unit here. But if they do, hopefully the headquarter unit can hang in there and hold its position without too much loss. We'll see how that plays out next turn, though. Moving east to the Japanese theater of operation. The city of Langkao has no supply, or 1 supply, for the 12th Chinese Army, which moved in there. So there you have it. We just attacked with our infantry, we strafed with our fighters, and we destroyed them. Yay! Alright, so we are going to take the 2nd Chinese capital here, which means they'll only have 1 more. Meanwhile, we're trying to destroy... Nice. Trying to destroy as much of the Chinese army as we can here. So we just destroyed a Chinese army south of Langkao. Our bombers and fighters are strafing and destroying various Chinese units in almost like a highway of death type scenario here. So we're bombing more Chinese troops here. This army will destroy them, so another Chinese army is gone. Unfortunately, the terrain is preventing too rapid of an advance. This Chinese corps here has no supply to the west of Langkao, so I'll see if we can finish them off with bombers. Nice, we got them too. So another Chinese unit destroyed here is near Langkao. The Chinese army seems to be melting away, and there's good reason for that. They have no headquarter nearby that we can see, and they have no city to draw supplies on. So the fact that we strategically bomb Langkao may be a bit of a pain in the ass next turn as we start to try and draw a supply from the city, but hopefully we can sort of deal with that. Meanwhile, we're going to move our headquarter in the north here west. We're going to try and get it in place at Ningxi. And we'll start moving our troops westward here. The terrain is just not very favorable to a rapid advance. Alright, so we are now advancing on the final Chinese capital at Umrichi. And I'm hoping it should just be an issue of marching down these roads and getting there. You know, the air power has proved decisive for us. And I think I want to try and keep pushing it forward as much as we can. The strategic bombers didn't even fly yet. I'm actually going to take this turn to reinforce them, at least partially. Meanwhile, this army here to the south is going to move south to deal with the threat here from the British. Operate these guys in here. I really need the mobility research done for the Japanese. Reinforce. Can we upgrade them at least? We can. So we'll upgrade them to infantry level 2. Also, there's a lot of British a lot of British aircraft down here, so I think it makes some sense to add some AA guns to the troops' repertoire. Meanwhile, near Mulman, the British are holding out here in Burma. They don't have very good supply, though, so we're hoping we can finish them off this turn. Not quite, though. Doesn't look like we're going to quite get there. So we'll probably have to finish them off next turn. Meanwhile, what do they have near Rangoon? They do have infantry. They're Burmese troops. They're level 0 troops. So hopefully we can overrun them pretty quickly there. Meanwhile, there's British airborne troops here in India. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. We just destroyed a large number of British units here near... why can't I replenish these guys? Near the Dutch East Indies. But now we need to pull some of our units back to reinforce them. We're really far forward. Yeah, let's do this. Can we... So we can use Hong Kong as a base. Because it is, I believe, technically Japanese. I don't think it's Caucasus occupied. It's a capital. All right, so let's pull some of our carriers back to try and reinforce them. Oh shit! Ah! Dutch submarine. You must die, Dutch submarine. We must finish you. God damn it. I didn't want to do that. Alright. Can I reach from over here? Yes, I can. Can I finish him? Yes. Alright, we destroyed that Dutch sub. So, it's gone. Now let's get these other guys back to ports we can actually repair from. What are the ports we can repair from? I don't even know. Probably not a level 5. Maybe these level 8s, like at Saigon and Kamran Bay. I'm not quite sure. One would hope. I think this heavy cruiser's at full strength, but I really need to get the carriers back into port. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're going to get there. Maybe this one can. It's not just the carriers that need to be replenished, it's also their air wings. Okay. We'll see. I don't really know who can do what at what base. So they're all pulled back. Those units have all moved. This infantry unit that just fought at Soryang is going to move forward here. We're going to try and see if we can get any intelligence on the British at Kumkum. I don't see anything there. Trying to figure out where the Allies might be. I don't see any naval vessels at Luganville or Nomaya. I don't know where the American Navy is. Meanwhile, it'll probably be better if we can move this headquarter unit. So where do we want to move it to is sort of the question. Maybe Bathlop. Otherwise, maybe Rabaul. It is a supply city, so that gives us a little bit more supply. We'll leave that unit in Batavia. Soon it'll reinforce. But I think we're about done with this turn. I mean, I do have some units here that feel a little redundant in China that I can probably start moving, if not out of China, then at least like south, away from the front. Especially these core units are a little bit smaller. I don't know how useful they will be. Now that we just destroyed a huge chunk of the Chinese army, and if we take a look at the reports, it now says the Chinese have... Is this the... this is the Chinese... No, that's India. This is Chinese. I can't even see where the numbers are. Well, they only have like level 2 industry left, or towns, or whatever. Is this it? Just 8 units left after this fight? Yikes. If we look at the graphs, MPPs for China, holy cow. You can see their income steadily declining. You can see the massive casualties. National morale is plummeting. They're almost below 50. The Soviets are actually, you can see their morale dropping pretty precipitously as well. The American morale is pretty healthy. The British morale is at 69. They lost a lot last turn with the naval action near India. Is this Australia? They're doing pretty well. They're not, they're not too upset. Italy's the worst off of the Axis powers from their morale. Germany and Japan are both above 100, so we'll see about that. Meanwhile, we've got 300 income left for Japan. I'm not researching enough at all. I really need infantry weapons. Oh, wait, no, I already did that. I really need mobility, but I can't research it anymore. It's already maxed out on the research level. What else do we want to research? Anti-tank weapons don't make a lot of sense. Advanced tanks don't make a lot of sense. Heavy bombers, maybe, but long-range aircraft, yeah, we've already kind of researched that pretty heavily. Subs, maybe industrial technology. Transforms the economy's award of footing. This took time. Major mobilization resources to support the welfare net increase affecting per turn MPPs. Yes. So I think we want to invest in that heavily. So we'll put 300 MPPs to that this turn to try and invest in industrial technology. Meanwhile, Italy has 390 money. So Italy is going to go ahead and buy some heavy tanks. level 2 heavy tanks because they can afford it. They're going to go ahead and purchase that. So if we can see Italy's production, they've got in August, they'll have some standard level 2 tanks. In November or December, they'll get some heavy tanks. If Italy's even still in the war by that point, if the Americans land on the Italian peninsula, that money's going to go to waste. But that kind of finishes it up for this turn. So we'll see how the Chinese respond to our success near Langkao. Maybe they'll try and counterattack. These units are going to have nowhere to draw supply from. They're going to have to fall back either north or west. That should give us more of a free road toward Golmund or toward Zhengyi, and then eventually Guangzhou and Umrichi, which is the final Chinese capital. You can see all the roads kind of converge on Umrichi. The terrain gets a little bit plateauy, but I also kind of levels out a bit, so I'm hoping we'll have a little bit better movement that way. And then once we take Umrichi, it'll be interesting to see. We could consider declaring war on Kathmandu, crossing the Himalayas and going straight for the capital in India, at Delhi. That would pose a bit of a problem logistically, but pulling all those troops out and trying to go through Burma, likewise, will also pose a problem. Plus, we'll have to go through all of the heavy resistance. We might catch them off guard by going through the rear here. So maybe in early 44, if we get our troops in position and we get our aircraft in position, we could knock India out of the war. If we knocked India out of the war, that'll really sting the British. It'll also put the Japanese in a position with rail line support all the way out toward Rori and Quetta to potentially invade into Iran and support the Germans against the Russians. That might be more valuable. The other alternative is moving from Umrichi directly into the west of the Soviet Union, but there's not really much point in doing that. I mean, I suppose we could advance up these roadways, the rear of the Soviet Union, toward Sverdlovsk and Perm and Kubenezhev, but I don't really know. I mean, I guess these are industrial towns. They do have value, but not much. You can see 0.75 MPP, 0.75, 0.75. So I don't know. Grozny, interestingly enough, is worth 2 MPPs. The oil near Grozny is worth 18. Is that the second oil well we took? Isn't this one too? No. I thought there's an oil field up here. No, it's a field. Oil field here. I thought this is the second oil field we took. The other oil wells near the Baku South oil's 3 and north is 3. So the Grozny oil well is worth a lot. So we'd knock an additional 7 off their income. If we actually take a look at the Soviet income per turn, let's see where they're at. It hasn't dropped much. They're still above 600. So, but we'll see. We'll see how this all plays out, guys. I'm worried. I mean, I kind of am exposed to some Soviet counterattacks potentially. We'll have to see how they play it. And I've got some weaker units on the front. But I'm happy I've got these 3 armored units that we just reinforced. We've got this armored unit that's still pretty strong. And we'll have to see where we go from here. Our air units are well positioned to support an advance on Gorky and then east toward Perm along this rail line here south of Gorky or north through Kirov. But that also does mean, we've also got troops positioned, although not very strongly positioned, toward Kubenezhev. But of course, there's a hunk of Soviet troops south here near Stalingrad, so I don't know. We'll have to see how things play out and where we go from here. We also have the 2 fully reinforced troops down here in the south, although I'd like to spend one more turn to turn the 5th Panzer into a level 3 tank to make it a little bit more deadly. Likewise, the 11th Panzers in Moscow should be upgraded also. But that's enough of me rambling about nothing in particular. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. I'll go ahead and save the game, and we'll see how things play out next time around. But until next time around, guys, this is the Historical Gamer, as always, saying thank you for watching once again. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.